Well, how's it going, everybody? Steve from Perfect Reload here, and we're going to go over our 2026 preview for the year in video games. We're going to kind of divide it into two parts: games that actually have announced release dates, and then games that we've just kind of been told are coming out in 2026. And I think we all know at this point that release dates don't actually matter too much because games are often delayed and sometimes these days just outright canceled after being announced, even when given a release date. Some of the games on this list have already been delayed before, so hopefully that means that they're actually going to come out this year, but we shall see. It's a pretty decent list. I didn't grab everything that was coming out. It was things that I was either personally interested in playing or just kind of are going to be very significant releases this year. We're going to go through release date from the earliest release to the latest release. The majority of games that have actual release dates are within the first few months of this year. And then after that, we'll just go alphabetically through the rest of them and just kind of see, see what we're thinking about them. How are we feeling? What's the vibe these days on these games? But yeah, let's get right into it. So the first game on the list is Highguard, which actually at the time of me recording this came out yesterday. So I've actually played it. So I figured if I was going to do this video and one of the games on it was coming out and it was readily available, seeing as it's free to play, I should probably give it a shot. This game's been talked about a lot over the past month, mostly negatively, and actually I guess it's been a little bit over a month. So it was announced as the closing game reveal at the Game Awards back in December. And it left everybody with a little bit of a strange taste in their mouth, I think. It didn't necessarily have the presentation of a game that's typically the wait just one more thing sort of thing. And I get that that shouldn't really matter, but unfortunately public perception kind of demands that games that are the final announcement of, a summer showcase or Summer Game Fest or Game Awards, whatever, should be like a really big deal. And on paper, this should be somewhat exciting because it's made by people that did Titanfall and Apex Legends, two games that I really enjoyed. I was actually really deep into Apex Legends at one point. I really, really enjoyed that game. But I don't play a lot of competitive games. I play Call of Duty, less now than I have the past couple of years because the past couple of games just haven't really done it for me. But I grew up playing competitive first-person shooters. I was a big Unreal player, played a lot of Quake, stuff like that. I was a big player of, oh my God, why am I losing my mind now? Tribes, big Tribes player as well. But I don't really have friends that play games like this, so I don't really have people to play with. But I figured, let me give this game a shot because judging from that trailer, we didn't quite know exactly what the game is. And it's kind of a combination of a few different things. It's a hero shooter like Overwatch or Marvel Rivals. It's got, I don't know if I would say MOBA elements because I've never really played a MOBA. There's not really lanes that you're in, but there's like a base building or base fortification aspect to it versus like attacking a base and a raiding type thing. So basically the gameplay loop is that you spend the first couple of minutes gathering resources. There's like loot chests out and about in the world, and there's these little crystals that you can mine to get currency, and then there's like a guy that you can buy things from. Once that's completed, you can then find the shield breaker, which is a sword, and whoever grabs that first gains possession of it and has to then move it towards the enemy base. Once you get it to the enemy base, you kind of plant it, and this giant machine materializes from the sky and opens their shields, and now you can raid their base. There are two generators that you hold down a button prompt, and then there's a timer that ticks down, and setting those off will damage the base. There's also another like central element that you can interact with to also plant a bomb that I think guarantees like instant victory, but the base has hit points. So in the first match I did last night, we had to attack their base a couple of times in order to get all of the hit points drained from it and win our match. But in the meantime, it's a first person shooter. It's 3 versus 3 hero based shooter. And you're kind of out and about. You have these mounts that allow you to move faster. I think the character I was using was just a straight up horse, but I've seen like bears, and I think maybe there's like giant cats of some sort. And you're moving at a pretty decent clip. The shooting does feel pretty tight. I would say it feels very Apex Legend-ish. And you have hero abilities and the whole thing, and they're on cooldowns and all that. I don't know if it's necessarily enough for me to keep coming back. I will at the very least continue to play some more matches over the next couple of weeks. They seem to have a pretty good plan in place for how they're going to support it post-launch. Everything is free in the game except for, I think, cosmetics will be the only thing that you're charged money for. So I mean, I guess that's, you know, that's a positive. And I personally, I'm not going to turn this whole segment into like a review of this game, especially not after playing it for too long. I'm not a huge fan of the visual style. I think the characters look very stock, very generic. We'll see what happens when they add characters, but some of them are just like, I don't want to say look laughingly bad, but they're very like high school, junior high, like I'm trying to draw a cool guy in my notebook and study hall kind of thing. It's not really for me. I think the world and everything looks okay. It's very, I guess I would say like Warhammer-ish. There's like a fantasy bent to it, and but it's kind of counteracted or juxtaposed by like having modern machine guns. So it's a little bizarre, but I think it's got something there to it. It's seemingly getting good critical response, but bad response by like the general gaming public. I saw that like the PC version was like review bombed and like it's like overwhelmingly negative or something like that. I played the game on Xbox, and I thought it was fine. I thought it ran fine. I didn't have any like graphical hitches or hiccups or anything like that. No issues connecting, found a match like immediately. Has a pretty solid tutorial to teach you things and a little bit of like a video tutorial that's non-interactive to show you like advanced techniques. But I think it's worth trying, especially since it's free to play. I think it comes across a lot better once you play it than the trailer that was at the Game Awards. I think this is a game that either you're gonna have to watch somebody playing it like on stream to get an idea of what it is, or just download it for yourself, especially since it's free. Don't just go off of what you saw at the Game Awards, because I don't think it does a very good job of explaining exactly what this game is or how it plays or how it feels or anything like that. So definitely a better impression than initially we saw. So I guess, you know, a good start to the year for the first big release of 2026. Next up is Mario Tennis Fever, another Mario sports game coming out. I have not really messed with any Mario sports games in a while. My favorite was always the Mario Golf games. I really enjoyed the GameCube Mario Golf. It's one of the very few games that like I played with my dad. He was pretty into it to the point where like I remember he like called out from work to play it one day. So he was definitely feeling it. Not somebody that was interested in golf at all, or Mario or video games, but something about that game really just kind of clicked with him, I guess. I don't know if it's enough for me to buy it, especially because I still have such a backlog from last year that I'm trying to get through, games I'm actively trying to finish. And some like older games that I'm in the process of going back to. So I don't know if this is like, I can't see myself purchasing this in a couple of weeks when it comes out, but I am very curious to see where it goes. I can't remember what the last Mario sports game that I'm thinking of is. I think it might have been a tennis one, or maybe it was a golf. I genuinely can't remember, but I remember one had a reputation for being like unusually difficult and unusually like punishing. Maybe I'm getting that mixed up in my head with something else, but I am curious to see how this goes. It's another, you know, Switch 2 game that's coming out, and it's a system that desperately needs games on it. I don't know how well it's going to sell. It may sell really well because families could get into it, and they're probably just kind of desperate to get something because there wasn't really anything a holiday for them. And I'm sure there's probably plenty of people that ended up with, hey, you know, we couldn't find a Switch 2 game because there aren't really any out. So here's a Switch 2 eShop card, and maybe they get a lot of purchases through that. You know, we shall see. But I'm going to keep my eye on it. I'm sure I'll watch some footage of people playing it just to see what it's like. And maybe in a year or two, it's like, oh yeah, I kind of want to play a Mario tennis game, and I'll go and grab it. But for right now, you know, I think it's cool that they're doing it. It's another game to put out on the system, but, you know, not one that I'm going to purchase day one. Next up is a game that I don't think has gotten a lot of fanfare. There's been a couple of trailers coming out, and I think actually at the time of me recording this, there might have been a new trailer that came out yesterday, or might have even been earlier this morning, and that's Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown. Now, I am a really big Star Trek fan. I mean, we got a Star Trek tattoo on me. Love Star Trek, but the kicker is I really only like Star Trek The Next Generation. I don't particularly care for the original series. I've tried watching Deep Space Nine. I think I've watched like the first couple of episodes of Deep Space Nine like 10 times at this point, and I just cannot get into it. Voyager, I think I saw some like episodes. It was on like UPN, like back in the day when it was like in its original run. I never watched any of Enterprise. I tried watching Picard. I would like to go back to watch Picard, but I haven't watched any of the other Paramount Plus stuff. Although I think it was last week or the week before, no, a couple weeks ago at this point, the new Star Trek Starfleet Academy show came out. And I started the first episode. I didn't get a chance to finish it because I ended up watching it really late at night and I was starting to fall asleep and I needed to go to bed, but I do want to finish it. And I would like to watch like Discovery or maybe like Strange New Worlds at some point. But this game in particular, Voyager, it seems like it's a kind of like a management game. There's some combat elements to it, some like ship upkeep and stuff like that. To me, because it is so specifically tied to Voyager, I don't know if I'm going to get into it because I don't really have like that reverence for the show, but it is something I could see myself like messing around with just because I enjoy that Star Trek element that's kind of uniquely Star Trek, where, you know, I think if you look like the big sci-fi franchises like a Star Wars, a management type game or like a sim type game, like doesn't really fly into that because it's so actiony. Where Star Trek, it certainly does have action, but there's a lot more of that human development, human interaction element to it. Where I think like a sim game, a base building game, like they did like the big mod for Stellaris, and then ended up, I think, I can't remember the name of the developer. They did a full blown like 4X Star Trek game like a couple of years ago. That was just a little bit too much in the weeds for me to really get into. I think I need something a little bit more simplified. So I think it's cool that they're doing something with Voyager. It's not a series that gets the level of like attention that I feel like Next Generation and Deep Space Nine get, or even like the original series. So I think it's cool for fans of the show. I have to imagine they're going to be very excited for it. All right, probably the first really, really massive release of the year coming out the end of February is Resident Evil Requiem. Resident Evil is not a series for me. If you followed this channel, you'll know that while I love horror movies, horror literature, horror music even, horror video games have never really been my thing. I love horror. I love all the gruesome stuff. Give me all the Friday the 13th you can give me, but I don't like the physical feeling of being scared. And I feel like a lot of horror video games, especially modern ones, have been designed to be full of like jump scares and things like that. And it's just not my thing. But I kind of broke the mold a little bit when The Quarry came out, and I really, really enjoyed that. So it kind of opened my eyes a little bit to being willing to play some other horror games. They have a game coming out, which I think I completely missed on this list. It's like a sci-fi horror game that I will probably play when it comes out. But for Resident Evil, especially since like the big shift to the first person games with Resident Evil, I think it was 7, just really not my thing. I watch people play through those games that really, really love them. I know a lot of people that are just absolutely in love with Resident Evil. It's just not my thing. I think this game looks awesome. It's just not a game that I'm really going to play. I could see myself maybe finding like a Let's Play on YouTube and like watching that while I'm playing like my happy basketball game on mute and playing some 2K and then, you know, enjoying Resident Evil through the comfort of my cell phone screen. But it's just not something for me. I genuinely don't know if there's anything that Resident Evil could do to get me to play it, just because that like survival horror element, some of like the self-imposed restrictions. And I know that a lot of those have been lessened and lightened up over the years, but that just style just like really isn't for me. I remember when, was it Village came out, the one that has the giant lady in it, and the same thing with Resident Evil 2, I think, where it has the big guy that like is constantly like stalking you and chasing you. That makes me feel like so uncomfortable and so uneasy. Like that's the last thing I want to do is like, oh, I'm going to sit in my couch tonight and just have a grand old time with my dog and get stalked all night. Like I just have like, that gets to me too much. I don't want to get into that, but I think that this game is probably going to be at the top of a lot of people's lists this year. Those modern Resident Evil games have been absolutely phenomenally well received, and I can't imagine this is going to be much different. So I'm very excited for everybody that is excited about it. It's just one that I won't personally be playing. I feel like we're just kind of continuing the trend of games I'm not going to play, but like I said, I put games on this list that I'm going to play and games that I just think are notable. The next one being Marathon, coming out in the beginning of March. Marathon's kind of been through the ringer since it was announced. There was the whole scandal with like the stolen art or whatever that deal was. But they've seemingly kind of like righted the ship a little bit. People seem to be getting really excited about what they've been seeing in the trailers. And I think definitely like the last trailer, I think the one that you're seeing right now that I'm playing on this video, really kind of shows like, okay, what exactly you're getting into with this game. They're obviously trying to push like a big narrative portion to it, which can be difficult to do when it's, it's not a single player game, it's a multiplayer game. Because this does cost money, I can't imagine I would check it out. If it was free to play, I would give it a shot at the very least, but I just don't have other people to play games with. And that really does get to me sometimes, because I really wanted to play Arc Raiders. Like I really, really would have loved to have played Arc Raiders, but that game as it stood when I played it solo was just not an option. It just was not really a thing that was working for me. And Marathon unfortunately kind of is the same way. I think the game looks pretty cool. I think it's got a neat visual style. It's still one of those things where, because I haven't been like doing a ton of like research into it, I still haven't just seen like raw gameplay aside from like the beta that they did last year, which was quite some time ago. So when this game does come out, I will be actively day one, like watching footage of it, because I am really curious and really excited to kind of see what it looks like, and see it in motion and see people actually like, okay, is this going to be like a legit thing? Because I think there's still room for another big breakout game to happen. You know, Arc Raiders had a huge year last year. And I think they're probably going to have a really big second year. Highguard could potentially catch on, and I think Marathon could potentially catch on. I don't think the competitive landscape is so locked up that there's not room for another person to come in there and kind of take over. So I know that a lot of people, when they see these games get announced, are like, do we really need another one of these? Well, maybe we do, because some of the ones that we do have are getting a little long in the tooth, and it could be nice to get some refresher going in the genre and in the space. So I think Marathon's got some potential. You know, again, not for me, but I think it's going to be cool to kind of see how it plays out. Maybe it's a massive dud. I get the feeling, at least not initially, it will be. I think it's going to have a pretty decent player base to start off with. We'll see where it's at in December. But for now, I think that they've kind of corrected people's feelings on it to where they're feeling pretty positive about the game. And I've definitely seen a lot more people talking about it online than I had previously. So I think it's got a shot. Next up is the game that could end up being the biggest game of the year, and that's Pokemon Pokopia, or Pokopia, however you want to pronounce it. It's essentially a mashup, seemingly, of Pokemon and Animal Crossing, two beloved franchises. Now, will it be as big as the last Animal Crossing? Probably not, because the last Animal Crossing kind of had the pandemic on its side for getting people really into it, because they just, they couldn't go out and go and do normal things. So a lot of people were just inside playing games, and it became a massive hit because of that. Now, does that mean this game isn't going to do well? No, it's probably going to do gangbusters, and I could certainly see it being the biggest thing that Nintendo puts out all year this year. I am curious about it. I like Pokemon. I haven't been really knee deep in Pokemon since the 90s. I've been replaying Pokemon Yellow a little bit recently. But I would love to play a modern Pokemon game. Obviously, this is an offshoot. It's not the same thing. But I would kind of like to get back into Pokemon, and maybe this is like a gateway to kind of get excited about Pokemon again. It's coming out in March. It's all going to depend on over the next month how much stuff I get through where I feel like maybe I could pick this up. But this also could be, if we get like a dead spot in the summer, maybe it's a really good summer game to grab. Or if we get like a lot of releases up until November when GTA 6 comes out, and then it kind of dies out afterwards, maybe during the Christmas season, this would be like a really good place to play. I always take time off for Christmas time, so I've got a lot of time on my hands to play games, so maybe that's like a really good time to play it. But I am very curious about it. I think it's a neat, interesting idea. I think it's a game that's going to appeal to kids and appeal to adults. And I think that it really, out of all the games on this list, aside from GTA 6, because that's kind of in a class of its own, I think it could be the biggest game of the year. Now, is it going to probably win like Game of the Year awards? No, but I think in terms of like sales and just general like player like feedback, I think it could be one of the biggest hits of the year. So the next game on the list is Mouse PI for Hire, which is on this list because I think it has one of the strongest looking visual styles I've seen in a while. There's been a handful of games over the past decade or so, Cuphead, Harold Halibut, South of Midnight last year, that just kind of hit you out of nowhere with such a distinct and unique art style that you don't typically see in video games. And Mouse PI for Hire definitely fits that list. It's got a very Steamboat Willie, early Mickey Mouse, early Disney black and white look. It's a first-person shooter. And I think that the visuals alone are enough that it's drawn me in where I am definitely going to pick this game up when it comes out to check it out, simply because I just want to see these visuals in person. I don't know if the game's going to be good from a gameplay perspective, from a story perspective, anything like that, but simply based on the visuals, it's enough to grab my attention and get me in to check it out. I don't really have a lot to say about it beyond that. I've just only seen a handful of trailers, kind of like a lot of us have. It's been floating around for a while. The game's been talked about for some time now. I've seen it pop up in some like trailer highlight reel type stuff at different summer showcases for the past few years. But it's finally coming out now kind of in the middle of March. And I think that's a good spot for it to come out, and hopefully it kind of grabs some people's attention just based on the visual style alone. So yeah, I am very curious to check this out to see if it's going to be more than just like style, and see if there is actual substance to it, because sometimes you do just get a lot of sizzle and no steak. So we shall see. But I think definitely in terms of visually, one of the most very unique things we have seen in a while, but we'll see if there's, a game to back it all up. Life is Strange Reunion taking home the award for a game my girlfriend is most excited about. She's a huge Life is Strange fan. I like the Life is Strange series as well. True Colors is probably my favorite out of the bunch. So this one doesn't really apply because it has nothing to do with that game. But this is going to be kind of the third and final game in the chapters of the Max and Chloe saga. I tried going back and playing Life is Strange again about 2 years ago. They did that remastered collection, and I downloaded it on my Xbox, and it was an absolute broken mess. Like visual bugs and glitches all over the place. It became unplayable about an hour and a half into the game. So I was super thrilled that I bought it on Xbox, but I couldn't really get a refund for it. Thankfully, thankfully Steam has their refund policy. I should have just picked it up on PC. But I really do like that style of game. Those are games that always really kind of lend themselves to the things that I enjoy, because it's a little bit of a throwback to the games I played growing up in the 90s, point and click adventures, more narrative based things. So I do have a soft spot for Life is Strange. I don't think I'm going to pick this up simply because I've never played Life is Strange. Oh God, I played the first one. I didn't play the last one, Double Exposure. I didn't play that. I've got that ready to go because I know my girlfriend wants to check that out. So maybe I'll watch her play that, and then maybe I'll just watch her play Reunion, at some point this year. I think they're games that have never been the greatest games in the world, but they've been fun games and fun worlds to kind of get invested in. There's some definitely memorable characters and people that you like to kind of follow along with. And I think a lot of fans were really happy that after, Life is Strange 2 and True Colors, which diverted off into different casts, different characters, that they kind of got back to the original characters. So this is a good way for them to say goodbye to them. Although I guess one of the voice actors, Ashley Birch, will not be returning for this. I can't remember which character she voices. I think it's Max, but I could be wrong. So definitely going to be a little bit odd not having the same voice actor. Although, to be fair, since I didn't play Double Exposure, I don't know if she voiced her in Double Exposure or not. But it's going to be a game that, while I don't personally play, I may end up watching somebody else play it. So yeah, I think it's gonna be nice for them to do that. And then I would like to see True Colors. I would like to see a follow-up to True Colors, but I would like to see Life is Strange continue. Whether they call it that or not, or they just make another game in that style, like whatever it is they want to do with it. I just really like that genre, that style of playing a game, that narrative first kind of focus. So I hope they continue on with doing things like that, even if it's not Life is Strange in the future. Screamer is the next game. So this is one that I haven't really heard a lot about, and then I saw a couple people on Blue Sky talking about it, so I decided to give it a look. And it's definitely like an anime-inspired racing game, although I wish the cutscenes and the actual gameplay matched a little bit more closely. The gameplay has more of like a cel-shaded, sort of animated-ish look to it, but not like full-on like Initial D style, which is what I was kind of hoping for. But this looks pretty neat, actually. I know Sony's been pushing this a lot, and I don't have a PlayStation anymore, so I forgot to look to see if this is coming out on anything else. It is. It's coming out on Steam, so I will be able to check out the PC version most likely. It's been a bit since I've played a racing game, and obviously with Forza Horizon 6 coming out not long after this game, I don't know if I'm going to want to play like 2 racing games back to back, but I think this one is different enough that it probably, there's not going to be like too much overlap there. So I do want to check this out. The last racing game I really did get into was Forza Horizon 5. Racing games used to be something I was like super into. I put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours into Gran Turismo 3. And there's just been random racing games over the course of time. I grew up going to arcades, and so of course I was playing stuff like Cruising USA, Cruising Exotica, California Speed, San Francisco Rush, like all that kind of stuff, Daytona USA. And then, you know, the home games, you know, I liked, for a long time I was playing like the really serious like sim games. But then I started to kind of open it back up to like the Horizon stuff, it's a little more arcadey. And Screamer looks like it's probably a little bit more on the arcadey side, which is nice for me. I don't know if I'm really in the mood for like a hardcore racing sim these days. So I think this will be like a nice kind of breath of fresh air. But like I said, it's going to be tough because they might just get totally eclipsed by Forza Horizon 6 once it comes out. I'd have to get hands-on with the game to see if it has enough to really differentiate itself. But I think with Forza Horizon 6 not coming out on the PlayStation 5 until a little bit later in the year, Sony could probably really push this hard and be like, hey, we've got a racing game too, and it's a little bit different. And maybe kind of gain some market that way and gain some traction that way. So I hope the game does really well. But I am looking forward to checking it out. It's one of those games that just kind of came out of nowhere, wasn't on my radar at all. And the second I saw it, I was like, you know what? I think I'll play that. So I am looking forward to it. Pragmata is up next, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this game because if you watched my Game of the Year video that I put out, this won the award for my most anticipated game that actually has a release date for 2026. That wasn't Grand Theft Auto 6. It was the most convoluted title for an award I've done. I am really looking forward to this. The gameplay demo really showed me that this is going to be something right up my alley because just seeing the trailers, I wasn't sure. I was a little worried about that like hacking mini game that pops up. Like, would that derail the flow of gameplay too much? And it really doesn't at all. So I am very, very much looking forward to Pragmata. It's been a while since I played a Capcom game that wasn't Street Fighter. They just haven't been putting out like a ton of stuff that I was super into, which is funny because they're one of the most, you know, more defining studios of my lifetime in terms of things that I played that I really enjoyed. So it's going to be nice to kind of sit down with something like this. I like the way the game played. I like the way the game looked. We'll see how it holds up from a storytelling perspective because we haven't gotten like a ton of story details on it. I think that there's probably going to be something up with the little girl. I think there's maybe more than meets the eye with her. Maybe the rumors are true and she will turn into Mega Man at the end of the game. We shall see. But if you want some more detailed thoughts from me on it, you can go back and watch the Game of the Year video. But I imagine when the game comes out, I will probably be talking about it on this channel. Saros, the new game from Housemarque, a PlayStation 5 exclusive, coming out in April, had a little bit of a delay, but I think it was only delayed by a handful of weeks, if I remember right. Maybe it bounced out of, I don't think it was ever a 2025 game. I think it was always early 2026. This game looks like it's kind of building on the foundation they had with Returnal and really going all in on that concept. Returnal was a game I never got around to playing, but I kind of wanted to because I always really liked everything that Housemarque did. And I like the idea of the roguelike element to it, but I guess I just never really picked it up. And now I don't have a PlayStation 5, so it just didn't really happen. I think maybe it was given out during PlayStation Plus at one point. I could certainly pick up the PC version. Saros I won't be able to play this year, as I highly doubt the PC port will come out later this year. But I think I would play it. If given the opportunity to, I think I probably would check this game out. I'm not a super huge fan of the art style. I imagine there's probably more to it than the very like red sort of space deserty sort of stuff that we've seen. Maybe there isn't. But I get the feeling there's probably going to be different environments to go through because otherwise it's going to start to really kind of feel samey and blend together over the course of time. But I'm curious how the gameplay feels because I have nothing to compare it to with not having played Returnal. I heard people say that they really like the way Returnal play. And then I knew people that said like, I really like the story, but I didn't necessarily like the gameplay. So I'm curious to see if they've learned any lessons that Returnal taught them about what people did and didn't like and tighten it up. I get the feeling that this is probably going to be a really, really big game for Sony this year. They're pushing it pretty hard, and they definitely kind of need some exclusive right now. I think everybody is kind of hurting for some exclusives right now. So Saros, I think, is going to be get a lot of attention this year. And I honestly think that if it pans out the way I think people are hoping it will, I could see this being like a game that people are really talking about for like, oh, this is like one of the best things that came out this year. So yeah, I'm sure I'll probably watch some footage of it when it comes out, but without that PS5, maybe it was a mistake to get rid of that thing, but I won't be able to join along in the fun for a little while until it comes out on PC. Next up is another game that we're not going to spend a ton of time on because we just talked about it in the Xbox developer direct reaction video that I did, but it's Forza Horizon 6 coming out in the middle of May. I am very excited for this game. Loved Forza Horizon 5. I like the fact that they're going to Japan and not just exploring just the cities. Looks like we're going to get some more rural areas, which is going to be a lot of fun. I'm hoping that there's some cool drift stuff in it. I hope that some of the car selection is going to be really kind of in that wheelhouse of like the big boom of Fast and Furious, where like Japanese street car culture was invading the United States a little bit, you know, seeing a lot of like the Nissan cars and stuff. I hope that that's in there because that itch hasn't been scratched since like Need for Speed Underground, at least for me personally. So I have to imagine this is going to be a game that I put a ton of time into. I want to say I ended up putting in at least 100 to 150 hours in Horizon 5. And I think that Horizon 6, I mean, unless for some reason they do some weird decisions with it, I can't see why I wouldn't be putting in that same amount of time. It's been so long since the last game. I haven't really played a racing game in any meaningful way since then, unless I'm just like completely missing one in my head. I mean, I did play a bunch of that Lego racing game that 2K did a couple years ago. But other than that, like nothing is really ringing a bell. I didn't play the most recent Forza. I didn't play the most recent Gran Turismo. So this is kind of it for the first time in a while. And sometimes when you have a genre that you really like and you don't play it for a while, the next time like a really appealing game in that style comes around, you just dive in like head first and it becomes an absolute obsession. So I think that there's a good chance that's what Forza Horizon 6 is this year. One of my favorite developers, IO Interactive, is back with their first game in a while, and it's 007 First Light, the first thing we've seen them do that wasn't Hitman in quite some time. There was the big gameplay reveal last year that I think left enough of an impression on me to know that I am going to get the game when it comes out. But it also left enough questions in me to wonder, am I going to enjoy it? I think they have the skill to pull it off, but there were parts of that presentation. Obviously, it's an early gameplay presentation. It's not representative of the final product, but there were parts of that presentation that we saw that necessarily didn't blow me away. And some of it looked a little on the rough side. But we shall see it. They've had plenty of time to polish it. They've delayed the game. It's now finally coming out the very end of May, just like right before June. So a really good summer game to get into, because there's nothing else really coming out around that time except for, you know, the next game that we're going to talk about on the list, which is a very different game. So not like competition at all for it. So I think they have the opportunity to kind of get a chance to be the showcase for a little bit and to be what everybody is talking about. Now, of course, there's certainly the possibility that like an indie game swoops in out of nowhere and kind of steals all the light from them, but you never know. But I have high hopes for this game. It's a game that I'm very, very excited about, but I am being also cautious about it as well. There's just something in my brain that is telling me it's not going to be as good as I hope it is. And I really do hope that I am wrong on that, but I get the feeling that it's going to kind of be like a 7 out of 10 kind of game, like a more like middle of the road type game. You know, maybe it's got some highs, but it's also got some lows, but it's not anything that really like blows the roof off of the place. But I hope I am wrong. I'm not a big 007 fan. I don't really care about James Bond that much, but I do really love IO Interactive and I want to support what they do. And I think just from a gameplay perspective, all the gadgets and fun things that James Bond inherently has, that could translate really, really well to a video game. All right, we are getting down to it. Only 2 more games on our list that have actual announced release dates that we're going to talk about today. And the next one is Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. Essentially, the Arkham games in Lego form, from what we've seen. It seems like it's going to retain that combat style. I was not a massive fan of the Arkham games, despite being a huge Batman fan. I kept getting lost in Arkham City, and it just eventually just kind of like, I just kind of got lost, and I just didn't really enjoy it. I actually did play quite a bit of the Arkham Origins game, oddly enough, and I did play a fair amount of Asylum. I like the look of the games. I like the feel of the games. I thought the combat was pretty smooth, although I did prefer that particular combat style in Sleeping Dogs. And obviously Spider-Man, the most recent Insomniac Spider-Man's kind of perfected that formula. But at the time, it was a really novel and very fun concept to try and get as much of a combo as you could going. I'm a big Lego fan. Last year in 2025, I decided to finally get back into just building Lego because I kind of got priced out of the hobby for a few years. But I kind of made a more concerted effort to get the sets that I wanted to get. So maybe we'll get some cool Batman Lego stuff around the time. But, you know, we shall see. Again, a really good summer game to play. You know, Batman's not really on people's minds because the newest Batman movie kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And I don't think it's even coming out until next year now. But you know, Lego is just always fun. It's the first big Lego project since that Star Wars, like all encompassing game that they did that covered like the entire 9 Star Wars movies, you know, legacy kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing with a more combat focused game that isn't like projectiles. And it's more hand to hand. I think they've got the opportunity to do something really cool with this because there's always like some nice little humor and Easter eggs and stuff in the Lego game. So I am looking forward to it. Whether or not I pick it up day one or not, I don't know. This might be a game that I wait for a sale, especially with 007 coming out like right before, doing like purchasing 2 games at a time right now. Just with how much games cost is just not a financial decision that's easy to make. So I hope nothing but success for them, but I'm sure I'll play it at some point this year. All right, now it's the last game that we have an actual release date for. We skip ahead all the way from May to the middle of November, and that's GTA 6. This will be the biggest game of the year from a sales perspective, and possibly even from a critical perspective. You know, you never know. I think a lot of people have soured on the campaign of GTA 5 since it came out, because when it did come out, it was already just a little bit dated, and now it's even more dated. I genuinely love GTA 5's campaign. It's my favorite Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto is my favorite franchise. I have played pretty much all of them, except for like the offshoots, like the Liberty City Stories and Chinatown Wars and stuff like that. But all the mainline games I played, I remember buying the original GTA game, which this was even before like the ESRB. So I had a parental advisory sticker on it, like an album would. And my parents were like, what the hell is this game you're trying to get us to buy? But GTA 6 is, I mean, this is a game that I like take off from work to play. Like I will be taking the day off when this game comes out to just play it for as much as I can that day. The hype is unbelievable for it. Obviously a lot of people are more interested in like, what's the online component going to be? That's not anything that I'm really interested in personally. I just want to see what the story is going to be. I think this like sort of like Bonnie and Clyde style story that they're doing could be really, really interesting. It seems like maybe they're taking a little bit more of a serious tone with this game, but that's tough to say because there were certainly serious elements to the GTA 5 story, but there's also going to be totally wacky and goofy stuff in this game because it's taking place in like their version of Florida, and they're kind of really playing up the whole weird crimes happen to weird people thing in Florida vibe. So yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to say about GTA 6. I hope we get another trailer within the next few months. I think maybe springtime would be a really good idea to drop another trailer. Because I think we just kind of need to see a little bit more of the game to see what we're kind of getting into. And I would like to see like some gameplay just to see if they're making any interesting gameplay changes. You know, this is a Rockstar studio that is now post their big creative forces. They have all left. This is a post Red Dead Redemption 2 Rockstar, which is arguably the greatest open world of all time. I don't know if they're going to get that level of detail again, because I don't know if GTA really warrants it the way that like a game set out in like the Frontier does, because you're not going to be really like hunting animals and stuff in like modern times, or doing like crafting or trading or bounties or things like that. Maybe they can come up with something else to kind of take those places. But I mean, my excitement is unmatched for this game. I genuinely cannot wait to play it. Like I said, taking time off from work, it's one of those games where you need to devote your full and undivided attention to it. All right, so the rest of the games we're going to talk about are supposedly coming out in 2026, but they do not have a release date. Some games like Fable have given us like an autumn release date, and then some have just said, hey, at some point in 2026 they're coming out. So we're going to go through them in alphabetical order. Some games I might not have a lot to say about because we haven't seen a lot of them. Like one of the games on this list we haven't even seen a trailer yet for. It just got announced just a few days ago. There's been nothing about it aside from the cover of the game. But we're going to kick things off with Ace Combat 8 Wings of Thief. Ace Combat 7 really kind of changed the perception for people with that game. People were getting really into it. And it seems like Ace Combat 8 is definitely taking a page out of the Top Gun Maverick handbook and really trying to create like a modern, compelling story to go along with this. But I think it's also going to have a lot of just like over the top, like campiness and goofiness. I liked Ace Combat 7 and I have played some other ones. There are definitely fighter pilot games that I have enjoyed and fighter pilot games that I haven't gotten into. I remember liking Hawks, the Tom Clancy game. That was pretty fun. But some of those games I just couldn't really connect with in any like real meaningful way. I think the last like fighter pilot game, which doesn't even really count as it's a sci-fi game, was like the Rogue Squadron, or Rogue, whatever it was, the Star Wars one they did a few years ago. Like I enjoyed it, but I just couldn't get into it. So I don't know if this is going to be a game that like I can really like stick with, but I at least want to check it out, try it and see how it plays. But I think, it's at this point, it's a little bit too early to really talk about it too much. All we've seen is the one trailer. I imagine summertime, all the showcases, we'll see more of the game. Atomic Heart 2, we're going to talk about next. The first game I enjoyed, but not enough to really dig super deep into it. I think maybe I got about 5 or 6 hours into it, and then I kind of had my fill of it. I could be getting this mixed up with another game, but I don't think I am. I think this is one of those games that had that weird, like outdated, archaic save system where you can only like save in certain rooms. I could be wrong. I could be mixing that up with a different game. I really like the look of this game. It's very kind of like BioShock-ish with kind of the juxtaposition of all the things that they're doing. And this game looks to just be like more of it. It's a really nice looking game. I thought the game played well. I think that this has the opportunity to really build off of like a solid foundation with the first game and hopefully get more people into it. I think it's all going to depend on when it comes out in the year. If they can get it out with like maybe like a 3-week window where there's not a lot of else coming out, or maybe it's a game that comes out like post GTA 6, like in December, and it just kind of grabs people attention when they're like kind of winding down for the year. I think it's got the opportunity to be bigger than the first game was. I'm curious to see, because I think the first game launched on Game Pass. Because I don't think I would have bought the game. So I think it was Game Pass. Let me look that up real quick, because I think that's the case. Yeah, so it was on Game Pass. I'm curious if they do the same thing here. Because I think it's been enough time since the first game that people have kind of forgotten about it maybe. And if this launches on Game Pass, it'll get people into it, and it's probably going to be like a more polished experience. And I think that could help them really, push this series forward. And maybe this becomes like a franchise for the developer that they can kind of keep going back to and get people really invested in the world and invested in the characters. Because I think it's got the opportunity to do that, especially with BioShock basically disappearing off the face of the earth for the past however many years since Infinite came out. Beast of Reincarnation is next up on the list. Not a lot to say because we just got into it with the Xbox Developer Direct. It's the new game from Game Freak, obviously a very different tone and style and everything from Pokemon, the franchise that they're probably better known for. I think it's got some neat elements to it. It was still tough to gauge from what we saw to see if this is like a Souls game or not. If it is, I don't know if it's going to really draw me in, but because it is going to be out on Game Pass, I will certainly be giving it a shot at the very least. But if you want to hear a little bit more of my thoughts about it, I won't just double dip here. I mean, go back and watch the developer direct video, or just, you know, check out that like portion of the developer direct to get a better idea, because it is a pretty decent look at the game from all aspects, you know, gameplay and art and all that stuff. I think this is a game that could catch people off guard maybe, and be a really nice title for people to dig into that like that kind of combat focused style that we've been seeing more and more of since the advent of the Souls type games. But whether or not it's got those elements to it, I can't tell. Maybe I just totally glossed over it when I was watching the trailer, but I think it's got an opportunity to be a pretty well-liked game this year. I think it could probably fill that niche of like the Monster Hunter games, where Monster Hunter comes out and it's not necessarily the biggest thing in the world, but it's got enough of a following, enough of a fan base that you hear a lot about it and it gets pretty good critical praise. I think that's probably the slot it fills this year, to be honest. And I think that that'd be something that Game Freak is pretty happy with. Now we're in my wheelhouse. Control Resonant. We saw the first trailer of that at the Game Awards. I am all in on the Remedy stuff. I loved Control. I played it a little bit later. I didn't play it until just a couple of years ago, well after the game had initially released. I loved Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake 2 and Spider-Man 2 were really battling neck and neck for my favorite game of the year in 2023. Yes, 2023. And I'm really excited to see what they do with Control. It seems like it's going to be a simultaneous story. So it's basically like what's happening during when Control was taking place, just with the main character Jesse's brother. So I'm really curious to see like how it's going to all converge together. We know that the Alan Wake universe is also connected to the Control game. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with all of that. It looks like maybe we're going to get a little bit more of like a melee focus in this game, which would be really neat. He's got like a changing hammer weapon in the trailer. And I love the service pistol in the first game with all the different modifications you could do to it, different shooting styles and all that. So yeah, Control Resonant is a game that I am very much looking forward to. It'll be unless there's something else going on or it's just bad timing or whatever, a day one purchase for me, because I'm just so eager to get back into their universe and get back into the world that the team at Remedy has created. I think that they are just top of the line when it comes to narrative stuff and storytelling and interesting visuals and just making a very compelling story that's told not just through the visual style, but also through the gameplay itself. They do some really cool stuff with like the mazes, like it was the ashtray maze in Control and the musical in Alan Wake 2. So I have to imagine that we're going to get something like that in this game, and it could be something totally off the wall because they are willing to basically try anything with their games. There's like no rules for what they are doing. So I am looking forward to it. And again, a game that we saw at the Xbox Developer Direct, so it's not really worth getting super deep into it, but Fable. This is a game I've very much been looking forward to for quite some time now. It's nice to know what this game is actually going to be now that we've actually seen gameplay of it. I am fully on board. I get the feeling that this is going to be one of my favorite games of the year. I loved Fable 1 and I really love Fable 2. Fable 3 was fine. But I get the feeling that they are going to do such an amazing job with this game. And much like Obsidian last year, who double dipped with Avowed and the Outer Worlds 2, I feel like Playground Games is going to be the developer of the year this year between Forza Horizon 6 and Fable, as long as both really pan out, which I get the feeling they're going to. I am, yeah, I mean, to say I'm excited is an understatement. The gameplay looks really nice. The system of like the living world that they've created seems like it could be pretty cool. I'm curious to see how much of like samey dialogue we're going to get. You never know. Maybe it gets a little bit repetitive. I think it's all going to depend on how deep you want to dive into like the main story elements of the game and then just like the city management, like being a landlord and all that stuff. I like that it's giving the option to do both. And I like that the people are reacting to it. And it looks like that kind of traditional British humor is still very present throughout the game. So yeah, definitely on my list for games that I feel like are going to be, you know, a short list for my game of the year. All right, we are winding down the list now. And next up is Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. I love Arc System Works as a developer. Blaze Blue is one of my all-time favorite fighting games, and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is one of my all-time favorite fighting games. I have slowly come around on like the Marvel movies and the Marvel universe and all that stuff, but I've always really enjoyed the characters from like a comic book perspective. Always so bright and colorful, kind of the antithesis to a lot of the DC stuff. You know, Batman's so dark and brooding. I think this is like a really good fit for a new fighting game where it's it's the characters that we're used to, but they're drawn in a different style, the different style of game, and it's separating itself immediately from Marvel versus Capcom. I think it's the right developer to do something like this. And I think it's got a chance to be a really solid entry in the landscape of fighting games when it's been a while since we've had one that really broke out. I mean, Street Fighter 6 was great, but like the last King of Fighters didn't really do anything for me. The last Mark of the Wolves looked terrible. Last Mortal Kombat was great from a story perspective, but it wasn't necessarily a game that I wanted to like go online and play against other people. I think these days, a lot of fighting games are kind of just like past what I'm able to do. You know, I used to be able to hold my own in the arcade in fighting games, but that's before so many of these like frame studying things came out and doing all these like negative cancels and all these different elements have come in where it's just become like taking a science quiz every time you want to learn how to play a fighting game. I think it's just kind of passed me by. But Arc System Works typically has done a really good well of introducing newer players or lesser skilled players into their world. Street Fighter 6 did that with their kind of different modes for how you do inputs, and Fighting Souls is doing the same thing as well. I still think it's kind of garbage that if you're using the simplified controls, it means you deal less damage. Like, that's just bullshit. I mean, just allow people to turn that off in like a competitive tournament setting. But if you're just playing online, it should not matter. It's a fucking video game. It should not matter that much. Obviously, if there's prize money at stake, then yes, turn off the ability to do that stuff. Make people really compete for things. But at the same time, it's like, should we say that that's not a valid way to play our game in a competitive setting just because they're able to play it a little bit differently than you play it? So I guess I'm contradicting myself, you know, having the two sides of the thought there. I'm a big advocate for video game accessibility. I think games should be easy to play for everybody. I think you should be able to get the full breadth of a game, no matter what difficulty you're playing on, no matter what control scheme you're using. So we'll see how that plays out. But from a visual standpoint, I love the look of the characters. Definitely a little bit more of like an anime style to it, or a manga style, if you will, than the traditional American comic book look that we're getting for the characters. But I am looking forward to playing this game. Thankfully, it's coming out on PC, so I'll have an opportunity to play it without having the PS5. So yeah, really excited for this one. And now for the game that's going to cause me to seek out a PlayStation 5, like I'm fiending for something, Marvel's Wolverine. So I love the Marvel Spider-Man games. They're some of my favorite games of all time. They're my Game of the Year award winners in 2018 and 2023. Marvel's Wolverine looks absolutely incredible. Wolverine is one of my all-time favorite comic book characters. I think Insomniac is the perfect studio to do this. The fact that I may not be able to play this the day it comes out is absolutely killing me. I get the feeling I might be able to like wheel and deal enough to like get a PlayStation to play this game. Like I might have to like buy the game and borrow a PlayStation 5 for the weekend and just try and like marathon through it in like 48 hours. I don't know if that's gonna be possible or not, but one way or another, I'm gonna find a way to play this game when it comes out. If that really means I have to buy a PlayStation 5 again this year after the price hikes and all that stuff, I will. Although I imagine I would just go to like, you know, Facebook Marketplace or something to take care of that. But I can't tell you how excited I am for this game. It's difficult to be as excited as I want to be, simply because as it stands right now on today, the day I'm filming this, I don't have a way to play it because the PC port won't be out until maybe the end of 2027 at the earliest. So that's a little bit disappointing. But I can't wait for this. God, this game's gonna be so good. Oh, it's gonna be so good. Cannot wait to play it. I will find a way. I will find a way. And last on the list, a game that I knew was going to come out because it's an annual franchise, but a trailer hasn't even been announced for it yet. I imagine that might change this weekend. But WWE 2K26, all we've seen so far is kind of the covers for the original or the regular version of the game and the collector's edition of the game. I did not play WWE 2K25, not because I had anything against it, but it came out at a time where I just wasn't really interested in playing games. And I thought about picking it up on sale later in that year. And I was like, you know what, at this point I can just wait for 2026. So I'm okay with that. But this will be a day one purchase for me. I do really love the last few WWE 2K games I played. They fixed a lot of the problems after canceling the game for a year and delaying, you know, doing an annual release to really right the ship. Because man, that ship was going off the edge of the world. I think that some of these games get a little too complicated for their own good. I wish it didn't take so long to like create a wrestler and all that stuff. And I wish there's some issues that they would fix with that regard. But in terms of the actual like in-ring gameplay, I think it's been pretty solid for a while now. It looks like they're adding some new match types this year. There's been some kind of like information leaks that are coming out on stuff. There's still some match types that I feel like should be in this game that are like signature WWE things. Like it sounds like the Iron Survivor match from NXT, which is like an exclusively NXT thing, is not going to be in this year's game. Maybe they fix that. Maybe they don't. I don't know. It looks like they're going to do a heavy focus on the Attitude Era. I assume there's going to be some type of gameplay showcase mode that's going to be focused on that, but it looks like the super duper collectors of the game is maybe Triple H theme. So maybe they'll do some Triple H stuff in there as well. I'm not quite sure. But I love me some wrestling, and I love me some wrestling video games. And since I took last year off, it's definitely the time to get one is now. All right, so that's going to wrap up our 2026 gaming preview. Let me know down below in the comments what you're looking forward to. And yeah, we're going to be playing some of these games. We're going to be talking about some of these games throughout this year. I got some thoughts on what I hope we're going to see out of some games. And I think it's going to be a good, solid year. Last year was a little bit down for me personally for video games. I think this year is going to, maybe we're going to be spinning the wheels a little bit more this year, and maybe spending a little bit more time playing games. And maybe instead of going out into the world and interacting with people and making memories, I will just hole up in my living room and make memories with the citizens of Grand Theft Auto 6. But that's going to do it for me. Thanks again for hanging out, and we'll see you again real soon.